Right. So moving forward about the Mandeville guide. So what I've done is for creating the Mandeville guide, I have copied the different segments that we had created in Mimics into 3-matic. So I've copied the main mandible, the fibula segment, and the cut sections that we had planned from Mimics to 3-matic. Right. So this is the mandible. This is the fibula segment, and these are the different segments. वाईफाई गया है क्या? Is the screen visible?
No, ma'am, it's not visible.
Okay, I think there's some problem in the internet. If you can just give me 1 minute.
Now it is visible, ma'am. Now it is visible.
Visible? Okay. So, right. So starting. So basically from Mimics, I have copied these. That's your mandible, your fibula, and your different sections that we had planned, right? So we have to mimic the same cuts or the same planes that we had taken in Mimics, right? So how do you do that? When we had cut the fragments of the mandible, you see you have created a flat surface. Now these flat surface can form the basis of your plane creation, right? How do you do that? How do you create a plane? You go to design, create analytical primitive, and create datum plane, right? So let me make it for the other side so that I can show you how. So this flat surface, I'm just going to locate 3 points on this flat surface. So this is my point 1. Let this be my point 2. Let this be my point 3. I'll put my point 3 somewhere here down. Right, so you see, I'm going to click apply. So this is my, I've recreated the same cut planes that I had created in Mimics for the mandible. Let us visualize this on the main mandible. Right. Now, to create the jig, basically, jig is so that we can, simulate the same cuts that we are planning on the software during the surgery, right? So for that, now we'll have to create slots. So for slot creation, the first thing that we have to do is we have to convert our primitives into parts, right? That option is available under the design menu. Convert analytical primitive to part. So I'm going to choose my datum planes, that is my datum plane 1 and the one that is created now, and click apply. So your plane gets created to a part. This is how your part looks like. Now what I'm going to give? I'm going to give this a thickness, right? So for this one, I'm using a thickness of 2.5, right? So how you can give thickness by two methods. One is design, offset, uniform offset, and this is my datum plane 1. The distance I'm going to set as 2.5, right? And click apply. This is one way of giving thickness. But what this does is this gives thickness only in one direction. So if you were to see my datum plane, this is how my datum plane looks like, and it has given thickness only onto the right side of the plane, right? What if I had to give equal thickness on both the sides? I have to increase, say, it is 2.5, I want to increase 1 by 1.25 on each side. How do we do that then? The option is you go to design, move surface. My entity is going to be my surface. This is my 2.1. I can invert the direction. So this is 1.25. I click apply. I'm going to click on this surface now and increase by 1.25. So basically I have given thicknesses on both the left and right side of the plane for the posterior cut, and for the anterior cut, we have given thickness only on one side. So this is how you can give different thicknesses and different ways of giving thicknesses, either one-sided or both the sides. Right? So I have already created slots. This is how slots look like. So for both, I've chosen, ideally we choose to give thickness, even thickness on both the sides. So that's how I've chosen my slots. Right? Now we have to create a surface around these slots, right? Wherein we can create the cavity. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate these slots. And further give thickness to these slots. So design, you can either use the hollow function or you can use the offset function. So I'm going to design, let's say hollow. So, and I'm going to give both 1.5, apply. This is how the slot looks like. Now I'm going to just transparent these. So this is how the hollow part looks like, and this is how our slot looks like. So when we'll subtract our slots from these hollow segment, I'm just going to write hollow here. We will be able to generate cavities. This is hollow, right? Let me first fix these parts. Now to generate cavity and to subtract, as I had mentioned earlier, we have to first fix these hollow files. So I'm going to just fix. So there was multiple shell being created, which I'm just deleting. And now I'm going to Boolean subtract the slot from these hollow functions. So Boolean subtraction. So my entity is slot 1 and slot 2. My subtraction entity becomes my cavities or the thickness that I earlier given of 2.5. Right, going back up. I'm going to click apply. So we have our subtracted part here. I'm just going to show you one example of how we have done it. So now I'm just trimming the part so that we can see the hollow that has been created or see the cavity, right? So I'm going to go to finish, trim, and trim a section. Basically, by trimming, what I'm doing is I'm removing all the unnecessary components from the model, from the slot. I'm just changing my entities. I'm going to select my entities as I want you to see what is the difference between the hollow part and the subtracted part and why it was essential to subtract. So remove inner, create new parts, apply. Right. So this is how only the hollow part looks like. Complete solid. And this is how after subtraction the slot looks like. Right. So I've done similar process here as slot base. So I've created slots for both the regions. Right. After that, what you do is you subtract the slot from the mandible. Right. As I said, we will not require, if you see, the slot base is through and through. It is passing through the mandible. Right. But we would want it only on the surface, anterior surface of the mandible. So therein what you will do is you will Boolean subtract the slot from the mandible, and this is what you will obtain. This is similar to the process that we had done for the earlier surgical guide, right? Now, this is the slot that we have created, but to adhere to the mandible, we'll also have to give it a surface, right? So, I have created adhesion surfaces for both the surface 1 and surface 2. So, you can see this is how the surface looks like. Let me just change the color of the surface so it is visible. So, I've created two surfaces. As I had mentioned during the endodontics guide, there are two ways of creating surfaces. One is by going to the surface, and you can either create a polyline patch, a freeform patch, rectangular patch. So let me just show one example. Let me hide these surfaces. Let's hide the slot. Let's hide the cut sections. So I'm hiding the main mandible. Basically, I want the adhesion surface away from the cut. So here I want one surface, my next surface should be somewhere here. So based on that, I'm going to select surface and polyline patch. So I would want to create my surface on the right section per se. all visible parts, and I'm going to create a surface somewhere like this. Just I'm going to take some section of the lower part, so we have a nice anchorage point and a landmark for anchoring the jig. So this is how it looks like. So this is how the surface extracted from surface construction looks like. Now I would want to isolate the surface before I give it thickness. So for that, how do you do that? You right click, filter, surface, then you select the surface and separate, copy to part, create new. So now when I hide the right section, you will see we have created a surface. Now we have to refine the surface. So again, for refining also, I'll again use the same function, surface, polyline patch. But this time my entity will be the surface that I extracted. And I would want to just trim it here. So if you see, we just want a small section of the lower mandible or the internal surface so that we have an anchorage point. We don't want it through and through. So I'm removing anything that is excess and not wanted. So I've created a surface around it. And now I'm going to delete the excess surface. And delete. So this is my extended surface created. Again, I want to delete this. So now there are two options. Either I can create a surface or I can go to mark and triangle. So I can mark these triangles and delete it. The other option is why mark single triangles? You can use mark plane. So this marks the entire section for me, whatever it considers in one plane. And there's still some section left. So I'm going to mark that. And I'm going to now delete these marked triangles by right clicking and delete. So I've refined my surface. Right. The other way of creating a surface is through curve. So let's have our left side of the mandible, left section of the mandible. I'm going to show on that how you can create using a curve. So I'm going to go to curve, create curve option. I would want to choose a smooth curve which is attached onto the part, right? So I'm going to attract and attach my curve onto the part and create a curve. I'm just randomly drawing a very small curve. You can create the curve as per the surface you require. And I'm going to end my curve or I'm going to end the curve at a very close point to that of my start point. So this is how my green indicates your start point, blue dot indicates your end position, right? So this is an open curve now. Before we split the curve, we have to close the curve. For that, you can select the close curve operation. Again, comes under the curve menu, close curve. My input will be the curve and apply. So if I do Control Z, you can see here that it is closed itself. Now I'm going to split the surface. So split surfaces by curve, and this is my entity. My split curve will be this. Before we do split, I would want you to see how does the surface look like. So I'm going to select filter surface. So now if you select, this is coming as one complete surface, right? Now after I click apply, what you'll observe is the surface within the curve will be separated from that outside the curve. So we'll have 2 to 3 surfaces being created. So if you see that one single surface has been created into two parts. So this is how you can create surfaces. I have already kept two surfaces ready. This is surface 1, this is surface 2. Again, using the offset function, I have given it thicknesses. You can see here. This is how I've given it thicknesses. Now, if I were to place my slots on top of it, you see some part is hindering. Some part of the surface, due to the thickness, is hindering or intersecting with your slot. So what I've done is I have subtracted my slot from these surfaces, and this is how they look like after subtracting the slot. So to see a comparative analysis, you can see. So this gray part that you see has been eliminated by subtracting the slots or the cavity, and then using design and Boolean union operation, I have united the different components into the mandible jig. So I have selected all the components that I would unite together, and this is how the jig looks like. Just changing the color. So we can then visualize on the main mandible. Hiding the cut sections. So this is how your jig will look finally. Now you can name, you can write the patient name by using the quick label function as I had shown earlier. And you have to, before going ahead with printing, you have to fix the file. So yeah, this is mandible jig creation.
मैम
Yes.
हाँ मैम एक चीज और सीखना था
हाँ,
ऊपर मैम ग्लेनॉइड फोसा थोड़ा सा आउटलाइन दे दीजिए कैसे जो बनाते हैं ना ग्लेनॉइड फोसा जो पीएसआई में जैसे ग्लेनॉइड फोसा बनाते हैं
हम लोग फॉसा एक्चुअली इधर नहीं बनाते हैं जनरली थीमेटिक में, बट इफ यू वांट आई कैन शो यू हाउ यू कैन यूज लाइक फ्रॉम लाइक एक बेसिक आइडिया मैं आपको दे सकती हूँ कि आप कैसे बना पाएंगे इफ यू आर यूजिंग थीमेटिक ओनली. तो
नहीं तो किसमें बनेगा?
मैम हम लोग मैश मिक्सर यूज करते हैं, नहीं तो फ्यूजन यूज करते हैं. दीज आर फ्रीवेयर्स दैट वी कीप यूजिंग.
अच्छा ठीक है, तो फ्रीवेयर में भी आप सिखा दो क्योंकि वो डिजाइन तो करना पड़ेगा हमें.
मैम एक्चुअली दीज आर कंपनी प्रोटोकॉल्स, वो मैं आपको एग्जैक्टली डिटेल में नहीं बता पाऊंगी बिकॉज वो हमने एज अ ओवरऑल पीरियड ऑफ टाइम में डिजाइन किया है. So I'll not be able to exactly show you those, but मैं आपको थीमेटिक में कैसे बनाते हैं एक अंदाजा दे सकती हूँ कि आप कैसे प्रोसीड कर पाएंगे, क्या टूल्स यूज कर सकते हैं आप बनाने के लिए. मैम
ओके
yes ma'am, I'll do that. So what you can do is I'm just hiding these. Let's assume कि हमको इसके लिए ही बनाना है. मैं इसका मैक्सिला ले आती हूँ यहाँ पे.
यस
मैं ये मैक्सिला कॉपी करके वहां ले जाती हूँ. So I'm going to paste it here in this project. Alright, so let me switch on the maxilla so that we can visualize it. Assuming that we have to create the fossa in between these two components. So आप क्या कर सकते हैं, आप एक box create कर सकते हैं around the glenoid. So you can go to design, create primitive option. create primitive option, create box. So corner point, I'm just going to give it a point here. I'm just going to give this point here on triangle surface. तो ये यहाँ पे एक बॉक्स बनता हुआ दिखेगा आपको एंड आई एम गोइंग टू क्लिक अप्लाई. बेसिकली मुझे बॉक्स सेम पोजीशन पे चाहिए था अप्रोक्सीमेटली, इसीलिए मैंने वैसे किया है. अब मैं क्या करूँगी, मैं अपना मेन मैंडिबल हाइड करूँगी और इस बॉक्स को फोसा रीजन में प्लेस कर दूंगी. So I'm using align and I'm going to align these box on top of this fossa somewhere here, let's say here, ऐसे, right? And then I can rotate and इसका dimension अब मैं accordingly change कर सकती हूँ, something like this. I'm going to now extend, then you can give it further offset and extend the surfaces. जैसे ये फिलहाल अंदर जा रहा है, तो आप इसको सर्जिकल गाइड की तरह ट्रीट कर सकते हैं, जहाँ आपने इसको सरफेस को और एक्सटेंशन दे दिया, राइट? आपने ऊपर की तरफ सरफेस को और एक्सटेंड कर दिया ताकि आप यहाँ पे स्क्रू के लिए जगह बना सके, राइट? एंड वंस यू आर ओके विद दैट सरफेस, आप यस बोलिए. यस यू सेइंग समथिंग.
बुलियन सब्सट्रैक्शन करते हैं.
यस मैं वही बोलने वाली थी. फिर आपने बुलियन
इसमें फिर बुलियन सब्सट्रैक्ट,
राइट. फिर आपने ऊपर से बुलियन सब्ट्रैक्ट कर लिया तो आपको ऊपर का एनाटॉमी शेप आ जाएगा और आपने जो भी कॉन्डाइल बनाया रहेगा फिटमेंट के लिए यहाँ पे, वो आप नीचे से सब्ट्रैक्ट कर लेंगे तो फिर आपको उसका शेप आ जाएगा. सो यू विल हैव अ बेस क्रिएटेड ऑलरेडी विद यू. फिर आप फाइल फिक्स कर सकते हैं. सो समथिंग लाइक दैट यू कैन फॉलो. सो दीज शेप्स कैन कम इन. आप इसी को और एक्सटेंड करेंगे तो आपको ये ऊपर का सरफेस भी इसके अंदर ही एनकम्पस हो जाएगा, राइट? So let me just show you that also. Design, I'm going to move my surface. I'm going to move this surface. So I'm moving this surface by say 10. ये बहुत ज़्यादा हो रहा है शायद से. नहीं. So I'm just going to move this surface by 8 maybe. Yeah. Right. So I'm just going to clicking apply. तो मैं क्या कर सकती हूँ अभी, मैं इसको ऐसे ट्रिम कर दूंगी इस शेप में, राइट? यहाँ पे मेरा स्क्रू फिक्सेशन के पॉइंट्स बना लूंगी. फिर आपको इसको थोड़ा ट्रिम करना पड़ेगा या अपने हिसाब से सरफेस क्रिएट करके थोड़ा शेप देना पड़ेगा. आप बुलियन सब्ट्रैक्ट कर सकते हैं इसको, तो आपको ऊपर का एनाटॉमी एग्जैक्टली आ जाएगा. एंड सपोज राइट, एंड देन जो भी कॉन्डाइल रीजन रहेगा, जैसे यहाँ पे इसका कॉन्डाइल कहाँ पे है, let's have the mandible here. So it's a little external, but let's assume अगर आपने कोई spherical condyle बनाया रहेगा जो डिजाइन किया रहेगा and it fits in the central cavity, so you have to subtract both the bone and the condyle or the PSI that you will be creating, ताकि आपके दोनों साइड के condyle fixation हो जाए. and जब आप anatomy को subtract करोगे तो ये anatomy को अच्छे से ले लेगा. जैसे अगर मैं अभी आपको दिखाऊं, तो cancel this, hide this, and let me first fix the maxilla. Before Boolean subtraction, it's ideal to always fix your files first because otherwise it takes a lot of time. Let's go to fix. Let's fix the maxilla. My shells here, so let me just fix the shells. So this is how it is. मैं एक बार triangles भी check कर लेती हूँ, intersecting triangles. वो भी 0 है, so the part is fixed. Now I'm going to Boolean subtract my box from the maxilla. I'm going to click apply. So subtract हो चुका है. Just hiding. So here you can see. I'm hiding this. So you can see the shape being created. ये जो भी excess part था जो maxilla के अंदर जा रहा था, you can shave that off. Shave मतलब जैसे मैंने आपको बोला था कि आपको थोड़ा बहुत trim करना पड़ेगा. So you can use the trim option, right? And
मैम बॉक्स क्रिएट करने की जगह हेलो
हाँ.
मैम
Wait.
बॉक्स क्रिएट करने की जगह क्रिएट सरफेस करके फिर उसको मर्ज कर सकते हैं ना नीचे वाले बॉक्स कंपोनेंट से.
हाँ, आप वैसा कर सकते हैं, बट मर्जिंग में ना आपको दिक्कत आएगा. मतलब what happens is if this is how it is, right? अगर आप दोनों अलग-अलग surfaces create कर रहे हैं, like if you can create one box for here and you can create top segment for that, तो कैसे होगा कि sometimes like the region will be very restrictive यहाँ का, तो आपके पास उतना रहेगा नहीं. तो आगे पीछे this is one example basically जो मैं बोल रही हूँ. कभी-कभी क्या होता है ना कि in some patients that we have noticed that one single box does not fit. आप अगर अलग से surface लेते हैं तो ज़्यादा surface available नहीं होता है fixation के लिए. So that time you can just combine this box and make a surface. Otherwise, if what you can do is you can create a surface here using maybe the curve and thing, and you can accordingly limit your surfaces. अगर अभी हम देख रहे हैं तो this is how the box looks like. So the box placement is actually not correct right now. We'll have to move it ahead. मैंने अभी side view से देखा तो देखा कि वो earlobe के अंदर जा रहा है. So the size, the dimension of the box is not correct. Basically, it should be placed somewhere here. If I were to, yeah, this is the actual placement of the box. ये ऐसे पोजीशन पे आना चाहिए था, तभी वो लोब के साथ ओवरलैप हो रहा था, राइट? आपको उसको नीचे भी मूव सरफेस करना पड़ेगा. इफ यू सी राइट नाउ इट्स नॉट द एक्यूरेट, सो दिस हैज टू कम समवेयर डाउन आल्सो थोड़ा. बेसिकली ये केस टू केस, पेशेंट टू पेशेंट चेंज होगा आपका क्या डायमेंशन. आपके डायमेंशंस कभी कांस्टेंट नहीं रहेंगे बेसिकली फॉर अ पीएसआई. So accordingly, what you can do is you can Boolean subtract, then create your surfaces, and then merge the components. So मोटा मोटी understood कि अगर thematic में अगर आपको बनाना है तो आप कैसे बना पाएंगे?
Yes.
Great. So moving to the fibula now. So fibula also is very similar. I'm just going to change my sharing window. वो मैंने दूसरे project में बनाया है. So I'll quickly run through this. So this is basically the fibula. यहाँ पे मैंने टिबिया भी इनकॉर्पोरेट किया है बिकॉज ताकि हमको समझे कि हमको कट सेक्शन ओपन कहाँ से करना है. Less than 1 minute of this session is remaining. We can all log and rejoin, and then I'll start the fibula.